This is episode 4 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. Today, I'd like to welcome AJ Cohen. AJ left university early, and without realizing it, he became an accidental entrepreneur. He spent about 20 years building, running, and expanding his 9-state wholesale women's apparel business in the Rocky Mountain region and taking a leadership role within the various regional trade organizations. He served on the board of directors, marketing outreach, bylaws, and entertainment committee, in between servicing his clients in New York City, LA, Dallas, and regional market trade shows. He believes that every company begins with 1 to 3 founders who are lucky enough to grow their product or service, raise money, expand operations, add employees, take on debt, and potentially look to partner or be acquired. And I'm thrilled to have AJ here today. AJ, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. So I think that's really interesting that you're an accidental entrepreneur, and I'd love to know, if you weren't an entrepreneur, what was it that you were setting out to do before that happened?
Child psychology.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
I'd worked with kids a lot in high school and was fascinated by them and thought this would be kind of fun. And I moved to Los Angeles to go to University of California at Santa Barbara, and had to get my residency for 10 months. So I got a job, and I got a job in the clothing business, and one thing led to another. It was fast, frantic, crazy, exciting, and I got offered positions to be a wholesale apparel rep in other states and cities. And I said, no. I was having a great time in LA, and I finally said, okay, yes. Naturally, everybody wanted to know, well, what about your schooling? Well, I'm going to put it on pause and see what happens. Little did I know it would consume me.
Yeah. When you put it on pause, in your mind, was it an actual pause with the intention of coming back, or was it pause and we'll see? Like, did you know? Did you have insight?
I didn't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I didn't know what was to be. I didn't know the gravity of the job I was about to take on.
Yeah.
And essentially, you are an independent rep. You are paid by the company, somewhat employed by the company, but you're running your own show. You're putting together your entire day, week, month, and year, and you run the territory. So that's the accidental entrepreneur side. I was thinking about taking classes when I got to Denver, but I was traveling 9 states, so I had to jump full in.
What do you love about being an entrepreneur? Like, once that happened, why'd you decide, hey, this is for me?
Just like everyone else, when we came up in our teens and our college years, we all worked for someone else, and you had to be on a clock, you had to follow rules. And here, you kind of made everything up as you went along. Everything was brand new. You had to structure your books, your marketing, your graphics, how your presentation went, running your trade shows. You got to create from day one. So you just kind of fell into it. You asked a few questions and you just did it.
Yeah.
Much like an entrepreneur does, even though when you have a tech background and you're developing a product or an app, you still have to formulate the structure of your company day to day and figure out what you want to do. Same thing today as it was 30, 40 years ago.
So once that position wrapped up, what did you step into next?
I was not really ready for prime time because I'd been gone 20 years from the business world, and I was kind of, you heard news, but you're really divorced from that business world and understanding it. You were dealing with nothing but retail and wholesale in women's apparel and those companies. And everybody operates very differently in that world than it does in the real world. So I had to kind of rediscover the real world. I went out for marketing positions and sort of ended up in professional employer organization 2 years later.
Interesting. And how, like, as your entrepreneurial journey progresses, what are some of the biggest pieces of advice or biggest lessons learned that you constantly take as you're working on new projects or building new things?
From those early days?
Yeah, from the early days.
Oh, it's so hard because you're very idealistic. Once you've done your own company for 20 years, you get pretty doggone idealistic.
That's
I had to go back and start listening to other people and slowly inculcating my own way of doing things into what I was doing and making it fit and passing it off and making sure that nobody was, well, you're not doing it the way we trained you. But I did that anyway.
right.
And I found success, and I would kind of, wave the flag of success when you can. But I think it's important to kind of understand the pattern that you're placed in when you move on and develop a comfort zone, make sure everybody's aligned around you, and then start inserting your own way of doing it. Sort of like an A/B testing, and you kind of go from there and you start finding those little pieces of success, what you can cut out that's not necessary and where you can cut to the chase.
How'd you go from the women's apparel industry into the tech startup scene in Denver and Boulder? That's actually, when I think of you, I think of how connected and how involved you are in these startups and pitching and venture capitalism. So bridge that for us. How did that happen?
Okay, so I've done over 600 and some trade shows.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So in doing all those shows and being in front of people on a constant basis, that's no problem. Working in New York and LA, you're working with buyers from all over the country in the clothing business. So being on is not really a problem. Relationship skills, managing expectations, dealing with credit and factors for your companies, shipping, name the condition, dealing with all the different boards of directors from our market associations that were in this region, the fashion show, dealing with the models, dealing with everyone else. And you're constantly in a relationship business and managing those expectations. So you kind of get pretty good and second nature about how to handle any situation. Even on the communication levels where we were trying to combine two market associations that were in two different buildings in Salt Lake City, there were three of us that put together the people in the room and said, we need to have the conversation. So you learn those coalescing skills. So after I left that, I just took that into the professional employee organization where you're consulting CEOs on saying, here, let us consolidate your HR and we'll do this, this, and this. We'll take responsibility and you get to focus on your business 24/7. Okay. I did get to meet a lot of technology companies in Denver from 98 through 2001 when this was a very big boom here.
Yeah.
And I had 3 VCs and a number of technology companies as my clients. So I loved what they were doing. Just loved it. And it was quite different from the normal companies that you'd work with. So as you found out more, I was sort of intrinsically connected to that. When I left that business and went back to independent consulting, I tried to stay aligned with those areas of Denver and Colorado. That's how.
So that's really interesting to me. And the reason I think it's interesting is that one of the hardest things, it seems to me, for newbie entrepreneurs or people running startups usually isn't about the technical side of things. It's more about the personal side, like that ego side of, am I good enough?
Right.
And I'd love to know what you think about that. And when you made that transition, did you feel that, or did you feel like, hey, I already have all these skills, let's just put it out there?
I think it's a little bit of both. I'm pretty comfortable in just about any situation. You can jump me into anything and I'll find a way to fit in or lead or ask specific questions and try to form engagement. Having done presentations forever, it was easy to do pitch coaching and get better and better and better. And when you've seen hundreds of pitches, start to find and hear feedback, you can intuit what that next person or newbie would need to fine-tune their pitch. I went to prep school.
Yeah.
I learned to write really well. And so fine-tuning the verbiage for an executive summary, fine-tuning the verbiage for a pitch, and what is that audience and pitch person's engagement and exchange level? What are those keywords? That wasn't hard to do. So you get better and better and better at it.
Right. What are some tips that you have for engaging your audience? Like, is it asking questions? Is it giving a demonstration? What do you see works really well?
3 words, really, is take them there. It's no different in sales. If I'm sitting in front of you saying, here are the services I can provide for you, CEO of your business and your company, but I have to put you in that moment and situation, extrapolate a little bit, guide you, and then say, now, if you had that, where would it save you time? Where would it save you money? What could you do?
Oh, mm-hmm.
So you have to take them there, put them in that position, let them see, and then ask specific questions about how that would free up time, of make them available to form partnerships, empower their people, so they don't have to worry about the day-to-day. So that's really where I honed those skills, was in the consultative area of professional employer organizations.
That should be a new hashtag, take them there. Like, that's the new marketing vision of 2016. That's awesome.
And I think there's a similar essence when you agree to sit down and go to a movie. Mm-hmm. You want to be taken somewhere. You want a story to unfold. You know that it's within a codified 1.5 to 2 hours of a movie, and you know a little bit about what the subject matter is going to be, but then show me all. Some people want more flash, some people want love, some people want relationships, some people want drama, some people want guns. But in any situation, you want to be able to take people there. Most pitches in the technology world are going to be 5 to 8 minutes. So within that time frame, you have to describe all those pieces and how you kind of fit, mm-hmm. and how they fit, and how the rest of the world that you want to sell it to or provide it for fits. And it's got to be a story. It's got to be a story.
I was just going to say that piece of telling the story, I think, is so important, particularly in the tech world, where it's not about describing the technology and how it works. It's more about the benefit and the story and what it's going to do for the listener or the investor, whoever we're talking to.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really good. I'd love to know, and I know you're a busy entrepreneur and you go to a ton of events locally. I'd love to know how you recover from a tough day.
Tough question.
Because not all days are up here. Some days are tougher than others.
I'm just as home, spending the last part of my 2 hours of the evening picking up a Time magazine and I'm always looking for things that triangulate with what I'm doing, pieces that I can plug in, mm-hmm. market links. It's how I think, how I live. So whether it's finishing up emails or going back out on Twitter and seeing the feeds that I've lined up that provide information to me so I don't have to go search for it, and then going, aha, and then I get way too caught up connecting people with that information, going, you should look at this because this is a validated way, or pulling up another article and saying, here's 3 areas, this is what just came up, but here's 2 more that prove that you should step into this arena. So that's my unwinding. My unwinding is really more discovery, mm-hmm. and that's how I unwind.
Yeah, so maybe this kind of leads me to this next question, and I'd love to. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of discovery. I know just by knowing you that you do a lot of connecting and are amazing at that. What do you do to keep up on trends, competitors, and what's happening? Is that mostly through social, or is it through the events you go to? Like, how do you always stay on the forefront?
I think it's through research and finding headlines, doing specific keyword searches. Mm. When I'm on a track, you can pick it up from Twitter. You can pick it up from social media. Mostly, it's out there in the ethosphere, and you pull it in and go, aha, where's the connection? Do you have to have a brain that kind of starts partitioning and saying, okay, here, and have a good memory to say, they were doing that. I remember that at New Venture Challenge. back in April. I could hook them up. There was a drone company that pitched from Telluride Venture Association in May, and there's a drone meeting coming up, and they weren't on the list, and I sent it to them going, you guys need to be here. I know you live in Telluride, but you need to be here. It was that important. So connector is sometimes pretty close, and sometimes it's just kind of what you do. But
it's just an innate deal.
Yeah, and it's better to keep people plugged in and try to create those relationships. Usually you get a very good gut feeling after all these years about who needs to meet who and why. And usually got about a 99% connection ratio there when people need to meet.
That's great. One of the best pieces of marketing advice I was given early on is grow an audience before you need it. And of course, we know what that means now, grow an audience in the social media world, but also applying it to your personal network, your mentor network, and things like that. I'm wondering if you've heard the same thing and how that has served you as you're connecting people and growing within what you're doing too.
I think for a lot of people who don't have my level of wherewithal or 40 years in Denver, it's probably great advice to truly grow that audience. Find ways that you can put down a brand, a name, something that makes you stand out, or where you contribute, either through volunteer or connecting or introducing someone else. Great advice. And I probably just go about that same way a little differently.
Yeah. How might you go about it differently?
Rattle some cages you haven't that you haven't talked to in a while. Just out of the blue. I mean, I don't have a problem. Who do you need to contact? Okay, great. Let's do that.
Just make it happen.
The governor's office just went to China and Taiwan and then Israel on a business development mission. They took 40 executives. So Mike Gelman from Spire Media was just put up a post saying, hey, if you know some people, I got him an appointment in Singapore and I got him an appointment in Tel Aviv. It wasn't that hard.
Wow, you get me on that list.
It was easy. So it's not that hard when you ask people, here's why they're coming. I think it'd be good for that exchange of information and knowledge and contacts. And they go, okay, sure.
Yeah. And it's listening. It's having the conversation and listening to what people are doing and what's going on and plugging people together.
Right.
What's a mistake you made, whether it's a rookie mistake or something early on that you're willing to share that you also see happening quite a bit in this startup world?
I think the biggest mistake for most people is in communications and in sales, when you're trying to impart something, is giving up and not having enough patience to go, something might be going on in her or his world that I'm not aware of. And instead of being, pissed and going, oh, really? We talked, she was so into this, it was right. It was like, and then you go, what? No one ever knows. And I would owe it to my wife back in the early days to say, just hang back. Something will always come about. And I listened, and it did. Usually it does. There's always a reason for it. And then people will guilt themselves going, I am so sorry. It's been 3 months. I don't even know what happened. Can we restart this? And just kind of look for the next thing you want to go to, and then the old one will come back to you.
I think that's so true. And I did an interview series with David Ralph, and he has a podcast called Join Up Dots. And it's based on a book that says it's easy to connect the dots when you look backward, but it's harder when you look forward.
Right.
And that is so true. And I consider myself to be one of those people with a very nonlinear path. But even to where I am now, I'm like, oh, well, that's why all that happened to be here. So I think that's great advice.
Yes, just be patient, and there are going to be people will just frustrate you like crazy. But move past that, move to something else, and wait for them to come back. And even if they don't, maybe 2 or 3 months later, you could always hit them up saying, hey, we may have lost touch or something may have happened. Everyone has issues in their life and in the world that come up that we don't know about.
Right, right. So as we kind of bring this conversation to a close, what important new trend do you think we'll be talking about next year?
I think the early stages of the IoT movement here in Denver will start to surprise a lot of people, only from the standpoint that IoT, Internet of Things, is wireless communication of little devices, nodes, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Start to be amazed at what will come up on your phone or come up at public screens, or the ability to wirelessly transfer to your Fitbit, your phone, what other devices. I think that'll become more common, especially in healthcare and in a lot of public. There's a lot of, we're just at a Department of Transportation meeting, and they know that they have to change. They know that they have to embrace the future, and part of that will be IoT nodes. So I think it will impact more of our lives than not.
Right.
Drones, yeah, everybody knows drones are here and they're coming. Digital healthcare, which comprises IoT, very strong in Denver, but then you got to put an app or a service or a device on the market. But IoT being the unseen, unheard of, unknown, that will start to permeate our lives a lot more.
And you're really involved in that too. Aren't you leading the 10-10-10 Health Summit?
I was a lead during the original 10-10-10,
Okay.
and back in February of this past year. A lot of fun. You get to use an extra 4 to 5% of your brain that you only use 7% of every day during a function like that. It was quite mind expansive, but we'll see what happens this year. I'm helping to codify a lot of things that are going on for an early June 10-10-10 revival.
Awesome. Good. Well, for anyone who's listening, AJ, tell us how they can reach out to you if they want to continue this conversation or look for help with what they're doing with pitching or getting investment, things like that.
Yeah, I'm always available for the most part to have a Skype call, to have a phone call. If I'm in the area, we can meet for coffee, for a discussion. I never want to be able to cut off the community.
Right.
We formed a company, there's 10 of us that formed a group called The Core, and that would be THECO.RE, The Core. That's our website. However, most people can find me there, The Connector at The Core, or theco.re. You can always reach me at that email, and I'll probably respond within 24 hours. Beyond that, one of our missions was to not always have entrepreneurs subject to finding a mentor in residence once in a while, finding an executive in residence once in a while, getting another referral, but actually getting a more structure behind feedback so that they can find themselves, fine-tune their executive summary, fine-tune their pitch, and get money and grow.
That's great. So the core tell us the URL again.
theco.re.
.re. I'll put the link below the blog post so everyone can get that.
Okay.
Make it easy. theco.re. Very good. AJ, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
My honor to be interviewed by you. Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you.